Hey everyone, and welcome back to Hoopers Nation, your top destination for NBA basketball content. The Atlanta Hawks quietly had one of the best 2020 offseasons among NBA front offices. But it seems that due to the fact they missed the playoffs last year and that they weren't even invited to the NBA bubble, made many people forget about them. But the reality is that their new and improved squad is loaded, and these new additions will only accelerate the right path in which the Hawks were already headed. In this video, we'll take a look at the Hawks offseason, how the front office improved the team, and why these signings, combined with Atlanta's homegrown talent, make them dangerous threats in the Eastern Conference. But before we do, please make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on Hoopers Nation post notifications for more NBA content. Even before the 2020 offseason, the Atlanta Hawks were already on their path to building a sustainable NBA championship contender in a midterm future. You might be asking right now, come on Hoopers Nation, why would anybody be excited or think highly about a team that finished the 2019-20 season with a lame 20-47 record in the Eastern Conference? This record was only good enough for a 14th seed in the East, barely one game ahead of the miserable 19-win Cleveland Cavaliers. However, that 20-47 record doesn't truly make justice to the great developing work that Hawks head coach Lloyd Pierce has made with the franchise's young core for the past two seasons. This all aligns with a very particular vision team ownership and its front office have for their team. It all started in 2017 when the Hawks franchise went into full rebuild mode after the end of the Al Horford, Jeff Teague, and Paul Millsap era. Their first move in the rebuild was hiring then Golden State Warriors assistant general manager Travis Schlenk as their new GM. The franchise wanted Schlenk to lead a rebuild in resemblance of the Warriors and their development from a young team with tons of potential into a well-established dynasty. The team's scouting department had a big eye on Oklahoma Sooner star Trae Young. The comparisons between him and Stephen Curry have been heavy and consistent since his college days. And while it's impossible to put such a big comparison label on a player so young and raw, the Hawks were excited to make them the centerpiece of their rebuild. That's why Atlanta passed on Luka Doncic and instead chose Young. And while Doncic is widely considered the better player today, he wasn't the guy suited for what the Hawks wanted to do, but Trae was. You can't compare a young, upstart core with one of the most dominating teams in NBA history, but the resemblances from last year's roster to the original Warriors can't be denied. Trae Young, the main piece of their puzzle and their offensive leader, played Steph Curry's role. His extended range and deep shooting abilities, the front office expected, would create a gravity effect similar to Curry's and open up a ton of space for his teammates. The Hawks starting shooting guard Kevin Huerter, a developing yet skilled catch-and-shoot specialist, played the role of Klay Thompson. Again, we're not implying Huerter is or ever will be anything close to Thompson, we're just looking at the resemblance of the way the team was built. Huerter shot 42.2 on catch-and-shoot threes last season, attempting almost 4 of those shots every game. So it's safe to say Huerter's game is headed in the right direction. Golden State has also had traditional big men who specialize in defense and can catch alley-oops. That's exactly what the Hawks had in Alex Len before he was traded away and replaced by a huge upgrade in Clint Capella. Andre Iguodala was the veteran glue guy that brought the team together, a role played by Vince Carter these last two seasons. Now this offseason, the Hawks' path took a very different turn than the Warriors. Not only was Golden State a much more experienced team by the time they rose to championship status, but they didn't even use free agency to upgrade their squad until Kevin Durant's arrival, when they had already won a title and made back-to-back NBA Finals. Instead, the Hawks had a chance to acquire some valuable pieces via the free agency market earlier this year in their process, and most of their 2020 offseason moves were straight A's. The Hawks had a ton of free cap space, and the admirable thing about it is that instead of wasting it just to fill spaces, they used all of it smartly. Something not every team always does. New York Knicks. Is it possible the Hawks might have overpaid a little bit for some free agents? Maybe, but the contracts don't look that bad. The team had a big chance to reload offensively and the opportunity to replace veteran leadership provided by the now retired Vince Carter. And boy, did they capitalize big time. Let's start off with arguably their biggest addition, Danilo Gallinari. Last season, he averaged 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting 41% from the three-point line on 7+ attempts a night, by far a career high. Gallo is a sure thing if you leave him alone in the perimeter, as he shot 44.9% on shots classified as wide open by NBA stats. He's also an 11-year vet that brings experience and leadership. And even though he isn't a really good defender, his 6'10" frame helps him bother opposing matchups and cover a lot of ground. He'll command a lot of attention in the offensive end, something that will really benefit guys like Trae Young or Clint Capella and their spacing. Gallinari is a proven scorer. The only thing that is fair to question is the 3-year, $61.5 million contract the Hawks gave him. He's a bit injury-prone despite managing to stay mostly healthy for the last couple of seasons, but the front office smartly guaranteed only $5 million in his third year, which will be his age 35 season. If anything goes wrong, they can easily get rid of him at no huge cost. Still, players like him usually age well, so that's probably the reason why the Hawks didn't mind giving him a juicy contract. Speaking about a possible overpay, the team also brought in Rajon Rondo for 2 years and $15 million. Yes, they guaranteed an almost 35-year-old Rajon Rondo $15 million over the next 2 years. But this move is more about Rondo's intangibles than his on-court production. Commonly regarded as a non-factor in the regular season, the two-time champ always brings his game up in the NBA playoffs. This is certainly something many teams noted in the 2020 NBA Finals, which is why Rondo had quite some demand in the market. He's the perfect mentor for a guy like Trae Young, has championship experience and makes up for the departure of Vince Carter, and he'll still be able to contribute to the team's success every now and then. Rondo's an extension of the coaching staff on the court, and the $7.5 million per season is definitely worth it, all things considered. Atlanta also signed Bogdan Bogdanovic to a 4-year, $72 million deal. Quite frankly, it's a solid long-term bet for a starting caliber player. In a league where most starters make anywhere between $15 and $20 million, grabbing Bogdanovic at this price is alright considering the huge offensive boost he represents. Bogdanovic shot 40.7% in 5 catch-and-shoot three-point attempts per game last season. He also shot 50% from the mid-range area on 3.4 attempts per game. Even though the tendencies of shying away from mid-range shots continue increasing, it's good to have a guy that can make them consistently. And in case you thought he was just a shooter, he also shot 61% at the rim. He's not a household defensive name by any means, but he had potential to be a solid team defender with a 6'6" frame and an outstanding 6'11" wingspan. Add to that a very well-rounded offensive arsenal, and that's the reason why he's such a dangerous weapon. Now, somebody who is definitely a household defensive name is Chris Dunn. He might have flown under the radar for the last couple of years, but he quietly averaged 2 steals per game in the 2019-20 season while playing below 25 minutes a night. He also had a 3.1 defensive box plus-minus, the second best mark in the entire NBA behind only Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 2020 Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good Dunn is defensively. His offensive game still has some glaring holes, but his role in Atlanta is providing top-notch defense against tough backcourt players, something Trae Young or Rajon Rondo certainly can't do. Dunn has a very specific job and should be a strong contributor off the bench. The best part about it is Atlanta only had to pay him $10 million over 2 years, a very good contract for one of the league's elite perimeter defensive stoppers. And with defense being this team's biggest concern, the Hawks were 27th in defensive rating this past season. They also added another defensive monster via the NBA draft in Onyeka Okongwu. We're yet to see how his defensive talents translate into the NBA, but he projects really well on the next level. Unlike Dunn, Okongwu has a very nice offensive game that complements his defense very well. One of the worst defensive teams in the league will now have guys like Okongwu, Dunn, Tony Snell, and Clint Capella, all of which have a huge positive impact on the defensive end. Not many teams are able to address as many areas of improvement in one single offseason as the Atlanta Hawks did in 2020. The big question still looming is how the Hawks' starting lineup will fare defensively against the top teams in the league, considering most of their top defenders will likely come off the bench. But as we've said before, Luka Doncic's Dallas Mavericks have shown us that the best way to combat bad defense is with a superiorly potent offense. And a starting lineup of Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Danilo Gallinari, John Collins, and Clint Capella is one of the most offensively dangerous 5-man units you'll find in the league. It's a perfect combination of youth and veteran expertise. The Hawks may very well be the Miami Heat of the 2020-21 season, the team few people pay attention to and the one nobody fears, but could end up surprising many come playoff time. Maybe a mix of the 2020 Heat and the 2020 Nuggets is the most accurate comparison, as the Hawks' young core resembles the Nuggets' youth. So teams have to keep a close eye on the Atlanta Hawks, because if they don't take them seriously and the Hawks' development curve continues its way, Atlanta could become one of the top contenders in the Eastern Conference. And if they don't amount to much success right away, who knows? Maybe in a couple of years their Warriors-like rebuild will make sense to everybody if the young guys continue developing this well so quickly. Did the Atlanta Hawks have the best offseason among NBA teams? Which of their signings will be the most impactful? Is this team already a contender on paper? Make sure to comment your thoughts down below, as well as leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.